Hi friends, I wanted to show you an up-close way how to make these faux campfire marshmallows to look super realistic to go with our vintage campfire marshmallow tin. Let me show you what I'm envisioning right here. There we go, the campfire marshmallow tin. You can find the how-to video on how to create this on My Sweet Home Living's Facebook page or YouTube channel, either one. Now I'm going to show you how to make the marshmallows and then how we get that faux roasted marshmallow look. So I am using the Bose foam clay, and I am just going to take out a handful. You can make your marshmallows any size you need to be proportionate to the tin container that you have on hand. Now you can make them life size, small, however you want. I'm just going for somewhat life size shape right here. So I'm just taking a little handful of this and I'm just going to roll it into a ball shape first. Okay, now go back to your preschool, your kindergarten days, and this will come super easy to you. Roll it in a ball, and once you get it rolled into a ball, okay, that's somewhat sphere-like, you're going to take it in your hand and you're going to rub it back and forth. Now this will get you a more cylindrical shape to your marshmallow. Okay, however, the ends, well, what we need to do next, this is like a true cylinder shape. Now we're going to flatten the ends, so put each end on each palm of your hand and kind of squish your hands slowly together. Okay, and it's going to look something like this. Now yours might be a little shorter than what you want. If it's too short, take it back into your palms and roll back and forth, and that will elongate your marshmallow shape into something that looks like this. Okay, now if you want the same size of your marshmallows, you may want to use like a tablespoon or an ice cream scoop, something that will allow you to get the same amount of clay each time. Okay, now if you're not worried about it, just pinch them, pinch out some clay and just eyeball it as you go to get the right size that you need. But you can make them smaller, larger, any size that will fit, like I said, what you need proportion wise to the container that maybe you have created. And I'm going to real quick make another one, and I'll show you how easy these come together. Now if your clay has a little crease in it like so, you might want to squish it back together and reform it into a sphere, again, a ball. Okay, and once you get that ball shape, a lot of times that will eliminate any creases that you have. We do have a little crease there. If it still bothers you, you can take a paintbrush with a little bit of water and smooth over that edge with your finger once you get it a little bit wet. That a lot of times will take care of any of the creases that you have. Now back and forth, okay, to get that elongated shape. Okay, and then to flatten the ends, palms together, squish ever so slightly. If it's a little chubby, put it back and roll back and forth again, and that will get you your marshmallow shape. If your marshmallow shape is a little pudgy around the edges, you can take your thumb and your your index finger and just kind of rotate it as you go, pressing ever so slightly in the center of that marshmallow, and that will get you a little bit more of a cylindrical shape that's even from top to bottom. Okay, now you're going to set these aside. Do not let them touch each other while they are drying. You do want to rotate them, flip them occasionally as they are drying. As they sit, they will sometimes get a flattened edge to them, and by rotating them, that will eliminate that flattened edge from happening. Okay, so every couple of hours, just come in, flip them over to the other side. Okay, and you will watch as they dry. They will get a little flatter on the ends, and that's perfect because that's exactly what you'll need. So let me show you the method that I'm going to be using to show you how to make this faux roasted marshmallow. I have figured it out and I'm here to share the little tips and tricks with you. You will need 2 substances that I like to use, and I call them coffee grunge and coffee podge. Okay, now the coffee grunge is a mixture of instant coffee, cinnamon, vanilla, and water. You can find the measurements to this liquid pinned at the top of My Sweet Home Living Facebook page. Okay, it's a cup of hot water, a half a cup of instant coffee, 2 tablespoons of ground cinnamon, and 2 tablespoons of vanilla, and go cheap, cheap, cheap on all of your ingredients. Okay, now to make the coffee podge, you need this coffee grunge. So you are going to use some white school glue, okay, just like the same school glue that you used when you were in elementary school for all of those fun crafts projects. You're going to get an old jar. I use an old pickle jar. Fill it with, not completely, about just about 1/4 of the way up with school glue, white school glue. And then you're going to pour a little bit of the coffee grunge mixture into that school glue, and you're going to mix it together until you have a consistency of something that looks like this. Okay, it's going to have all of those cinnamon specks in that, and this is what I use for a decoupage medium, and also what I use to apply to a lot of surfaces that I use to give them that vintage or primitive look. Now these marshmallows today, they are going to be absolutely amazing, but there's a little bit of a trick to them. Okay, on your tabletop, you're going to need a little bit of some instant coffee crystals. Okay, I just get the cheap kind. I'm going to pour them out in the lid a little bit. Okay, you won't need very much, just a little bit. And then these coffee crystals, some of them can be a little bit more coarse than others, so all I'm going to do is just take my finger and smash some of them and kind of get more of a powder type texture to them. So let's grind those down into more of a powder, because we're going to use those on our marshmallows in a little bit, and by doing that, that will allow them to dissolve much faster when we're ready for them to do their magic. Okay, now you're going to take one of these marshmallows. You can go ahead and let them dry a little while. These have been drying for about 24 hours, okay? And then you're going to insert a skewer stick in the end of one of your marshmallows, okay? And spin as you insert it. That way it doesn't distort the shape of your marshmallow too much, okay? And once you get that on there, this is how you're going to be able to maneuver and handle this marshmallow while you're giving it its magic coating of roasting here. Okay, so let me see, where did that paintbrush go? You are going to take a paintbrush, okay, a little paintbrush. Now this had some Mod Podge on it, that's okay. I'm going to stick it down in this coffee podge, okay? This coffee podge is the glue and coffee grunge mixed together, okay? And it's amazing. All right, so I'm going to take that substance, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a circle around the top of my marshmallow. Whenever you roast marshmallows, I feel like the top rim and the bottom rim are a little bit more pronounced in color. So that's where I want my darker color on my marshmallow. Okay, now right now it looks pretty elementary, right? Just wait, just wait. Now, if you want to, you can kind of let this dry a little bit before you proceed to the next step. Okay, I'm going to take my dryer tool and I'm going to give it just a real quick little touch of heat and dry. Doesn't have to be completely dry to proceed to the next step, but it does help to let it dry just a smidge before we go to the next layer of color that we're going to add to this to achieve the effect that we're after. Excuse me. Okay, I can start to see it drying because it's losing a little bit of that sheen, that shine, okay? And that's how I know it's drying. Okay, now it's not completely dry, but dry enough for me to proceed to the next step. Next, I'm going to take a smaller flat paintbrush, okay? And if there's anything that's still wet, I'm just going to take my brush and I'm going to pull it down let me show you here. There, let's go this way. I'm going to pull it down towards the center of my marshmallow. Okay, there you go. See how we've done that all the way around? And then from the bottom, we're going to pull the color up. You are going to have some lines, but don't fret. We're going to continue working that color until we get one happy marriage of all the colors that are there, and you'll see how this turns out in the end. Now, here on the very tip, I'm just going to kind of do the same thing with my brush. I'm just going to kind of rub it across, and then same with the bottom. Now this is what we have right now. Let's give it a quick dry. Quick dry, and then we'll go to the next step of adding more color to achieve that final look. Dry it just until you don't see any big globs of wet glossy mixture on your marshmallow. Okay, once you get that matte look, now you're ready to go to the next layer. Now for this layer I'm still going to be using this coffee podge, only I want to apply it a little more with precision. So I'm going to use this smaller brush. I'm going to dip it down in my coffee podge, I'm sorry, and I'm going to repeat that same step that we did in the very beginning. I'm going to go around the top rim of my marshmallow. Okay, top rim, making a circle all the way around, and I'm going to repeat for the bottom. Repeat it all the way around. If it starts to drip, that's okay. Just take your brush and move that mixture around to where you want it to be. Okay, this is what we have right now. If you want to, you can pull down a little bit. Depends on how dark or light you want your marshmallow to be. Some of you might prefer to have a little bit of white left on your marshmallow, while others like ours truly blackened. Okay, now while this is still wet, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this same paintbrush and I'm going to dip it down in these instant coffee crystals and put a little bit on the tip of my brush. Do you see that? I've added that to the tip of my brush. And then I'm going to dab that in the wet areas on that marshmallow. And that instant coffee is going to melt. And this is when the real magic starts to happen. You're going around the rim of where your mixture is still wet. If it's not wet, your instant coffee is not going to be able to do its job. So you're going to tap, and go around the rim of that marshmallow that you have there. Okay, now let it sit for a minute. And once it sits, you're going to start to see those crystals just dissolve and melt into that substance. Now my mixture at the bottom is probably getting a little too dry, so I'm going to just touch it with a little bit more. Dab the coffee crystals on my brush and add them on top of that mixture so that it can soak up the moisture and then begin to melt. You may want to leave one side a little bit lighter than the other. You know, just think of what a true roasted marshmallow looks like. You can, there's no right or wrong color distribution to these, honestly. This is what we have so far. Now I'm going to take my brush just as it is. It still has some instant coffee loaded on it, but I'm just going to lightly feather brush. I have a little imperfection on my clay right there, so I'm going to touch that up a little bit and give it a brush. Now these marshmallows, think about it, when you're roasting a real marshmallow, they get ooey gooey, melty, drippy, and a little misshapen. So we are welcoming any kind of color and oozy-goozy goodness that we can get on these, right? Now, I'm going to take my heat tool and I'm going to very slowly rotate this marshmallow under the heat. And when I do so, you'll see this instant coffee mixture is going to get a little bubbly, and it's going to give us like that really roasted marshmallow effect. Okay, so let's apply the heat and let's watch and see what happens here. And I'm hoping the camera will pick this up, but you can see as the heat sits, it will cause that coffee podge mixture, those little dabs of instant coffee and coffee podge, it will allow those to get a little bubbly. And if not, just let it sit for just a minute and it will happen. Promise. It will happen. Just be patient. And sometimes it takes a little longer than others, depending on how wet or damp the marshmallow is. Let's move to the bottom, and sometimes it might need to be a little bit more halfway dry before you start to see the bubbling action. Because right now what it's doing, it's actually drying, and then the bubbling action will happen. So I'm going to leave it in one spot for just a minute. Let's pick a good spot here. Let's pick this spot. And okay, here it's happening over here. So let me rotate my marshmallow. Okay, I don't know if you guys can see that, but it is starting to bubble. Let me tilt it this way. I'm really hoping you all can see that, but it will start to bubble, just as if you were applying some real heat to that. And what happens is once it bubbles and then cools, you get this cool roasted look to the surface of your marshmallow. It kind of gets shrivelly, bubbly, and leaves like that ooey gooey look to the surface. I'm going to do the same thing around the bottom. Okay, right there on the tip of that, you can see just a little bit. I'm not sure how well it's going to pick it up in the light under this camera, but it will have a little bit of that bubbly look to it. I think the key is that you want that little area, those little areas of coffee podge to be a little bit dry before you start to see the bubbling. Now, I'm not sure if you can see right there, but I am getting a little bit of bubbling action right there on that surface. And I'm going to keep it there for a little bit. It's so small, I bet the camera may not pick it up. But if you continue to do that around the rim, on the top and the bottom of your marshmallow, and then let it cool, you are going to get that true roasted look to the finish of your marshmallow. Okay? Now, this one is a little bit darker, or not as dark, I should say, not as dark as the one I showed you a minute ago. I'm going to dip this into the coffee podge one more time, and I'm just going to kind of go over it just a little bit. I like my roasted marshmallows to look really roasted, and so I want to make sure that I get some of that look down a little bit farther in some areas. And I don't want a real harsh line of color, if you will. So on this top, I'm going to smooth that down a little bit with the color, just so that I don't have a real harsh line of brown versus white, if you know what I mean. Okay? Variated color there. See where that line is a little harsh? Let's dip it in the coffee podge. And let's just rub some of that color down. See how we're doing that? To get a little more of that brown downward so that we don't have that harsh line, that circle line around the marshmallow. And there we go. That's what we have right now. And that looks pretty darn close to a real marshmallow, roasted marshmallow, I think. Now let's give this a quick dry. If you want to take it a step farther, now I will say I think this has that good roasty toasty look. You've got the darks and the lights, and that right there, that grungy texture right there, that is what you're looking for, and that is what you'll get by applying the heat over that coffee podge as it's drying. You'll get that bubbling action, and then once it cools, it settles back down and gives you that bubbly surface, look to the surface, that texture that we're going for. Okay. Now, if you want to add a little bit of black to this, what you can do is just take like a baby wipe. Put a little bit of black acrylic paint just ever so slightly on the tip of a baby wipe and just dab it in areas of where you want a little bit of black to show up. You don't want a lot of black because the black can overpower your color, okay? So think about when you get a roasted marshmallow, most of the time you have one side that's a little bit darker than the rest. So you can apply a little bit of black over top of the brown. I will say if you're applying the black, I would avoid the lighter areas because sometimes when you add black to that lighter area, sometimes it can appear a little bit of a green color. So when I'm applying a little bit of that black, I'm just dabbing it on that dark brown areas right there. And that'll get you that roasted color to the side of that marshmallow, if you will. All right. Now I am using a little distressed ink pad, okay, and it's black color, black soot is the color, and I'm just using a baby wipe, dabbing it on that ink pad and then dabbing it on my marshmallow so that it gives me that little subtle touch of black without being overpowering. Now once these completely dry, you can remove the skewer and insert, if you're going to use like a stick, you can probably insert that stick. Now my marshmallow is still a little bit soft, but let's look at this one over here. This is one that I created earlier. So I think this one is a little bit dry. Now I'm going to pull out this skewer, spin it as you pull out, and it will help to remove that without distorting your marshmallow shape. Now my stick is a lot larger than my skewer stick, so I'm going to take that skewer stick and I'm just going to kind of use it to enlarge that hole where I can put that stick in a little bit easier without it distorting my marshmallow too much. And you're going to do this before they get completely dry. Okay, this is about halfway dry. I think I'm going to use the smaller end of this stick. Okay, and there you go. You have, how real does that look? All right, so we're going to put these together in our marshmallow tin, and I will show you how to put these together to create a really cute display. And so stay tuned for the photo of that little finished display and show you how to display these so cute in that campfire vintage tin.